obviously, we talked previously on the WAN show in, well, reasonable enough depth. You watched the Apple event. You know what's going on. Two of the big products that Apple announced are the Mac Studio lineup featuring their new up to M1 Ultra chip, which is actually pretty cool. The technology behind it, the way that they're taking two separate GPUs on two separate dies and fabricating them together is something that has been conceptualized in the past, but has not actually been done. Apple did it. I mean, they leapfrogged the supposed GPU specialists when they do the whole freaking SoC. Like, it's a feat. But what was really frustrating about the Mac Studio was that Apple was just like, oh, you want to upgrade it after the fact? Well, you know what? We were super cool about that with the Mac Pro, but for the Mac Studio, you can just go and take a giant fart, I guess. Because there's no upgradability.
Yeah, except maybe there is.
Anthony opened it up, which is relatively straightforward. You just pry off the little rubber ring on the bottom, and there's some screws. Those screws could have easily been somewhere else, so you don't have to destroy the adhesive on the rubber ring. Thanks, Apple. But no, heaven forbid we have any screws. Or engineer a little locking mechanism for the ring. That would have been...
might come undone.
Technology like that simply doesn't exist.
No, of course not.
I walked in, Anthony was opening up the Mac Studio, and I was like, hey, what's that thing? And he picks it up, he's like,
what is this?
It's the SSD. Not only can the SSD be removed and replaced, but there's actually an extra slot.
An additional.
There's an additional one.
Not just like wired in, but actually the hardware there, right?
Well, no, like there's a new, there's a slot. I mean, why would they put a slot there if it's not connected to anything?
Yeah.
Now,
crazy.
Here, we have no way to confirm this yet, but here is my worst case scenario. My best case scenario, okay, is that Apple will have these slots in there and users could conceivably upgrade their storage in the future without resorting to external Thunderbolt storage. That's my best case scenario. We'll have companies like OWC releasing third-party SSDs that you can upgrade your Mac with or whatever the case may be. That's my best case scenario. You want to hear my worst case scenario?
I think I can assume.
One of the things I noticed about the SSD module is that it doesn't appear to have any DRAM or any controller on it. Now, there are DRAM-less SSDs these days that you can achieve reasonable performance with, and Apple does have DRAM right on package on the M1 series. So conceivably, it could be using a small carved out amount of its own DRAM to fulfill the same function. I kind of doubt that one, to be perfectly honest with you. But it is conceivable that they could be doing that. And we also know that the M1 SoC, the M1 series SoCs, contain SSD controllers. So it is my worst case doomsday scenario guess that Apple may actually be locking the capacity through firmware, with the excuse being encryption and security.
Right. Which is a commonplace excuse.
In spite of the fact that clearly it has not one, but two SSD slots. Back to why it might have two. Why would you have two if it's not upgradable? Surely Apple would only ever put in one, unless these are just dumb. They're just dumb NAND packages that the SSD controller interfaces with. And if there was any kind of change and a proper handshake didn't occur between the controller and the packages, it would just not work.
Right.
That is my worst case scenario.
What do you think it is?
Oh.
You had to pick one. And not like pick one that you want it to be, but what one do you like suspect is going on?
I think that unless there is enough consumer backlash like we saw with, what was the thing they backtracked on? Locking the screens, to,
Oh, yeah.
locking the screen serial numbers. I think unless there's enough backlash, and frankly, I doubt the Mac audience, particularly for this product. What's it start at, like $4,000 or something like that, or $2,800 for the non-ultra one? I suspect that the audience for this product simply isn't loud enough and numerous enough to register on Apple's upset-o-meter compared to the iPhone audience, right? When the iPhone audience is mad about something as mainstream as not being able to get a frickin' screen replacement at the mall, that amount of noise is going to be up here. Mac Studio users, okay? Then we've got, Mac users, studio level Mac users, ones that might actually care about upgrading their own stuff. I mean, we're below the level of the table by that point in comparison
to the small percentage of people, and it's a small percentage of people that if they're buying this product, their price is probably not their like absolute number one concern, you know. So they'll probably just pay to upgrade to something else.
Well,
it's very business focused product.
So I don't. The truth is, I don't know. I just don't know.
Are you guys testing it? Are you guys going to try to figure it out?
I don't think we have 2 Mac Studios coming, but that would be a cool way to test it. Just plug a second one in and see what happens. I'll have to check. Maybe we do have 2 coming. If so, that's absolutely a video that we'd love to do next week. I'm frustrated. And the thing that frustrates me the most is that you can tell that Apple understands the value of modular components that are easily replaceable when it benefits them.
Supply chain stuff, et cetera,
right?
et cetera.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. Apple does lock their boards, right? Their main boards to an amount of RAM now because they went and they put the DRAM on package, right? So that's not on die. That means you've got your SoC die and then on the same like substrate, on the same the little green PCB part, on that same package, they've got their DRAM chips, right? And there are benefits to having the DRAM as close as possible to the processor. We see this on GPUs, for example. Rather if you've got too many chips, right? Rather than put some of them, out here farther, you'll see them put them like in between the PCIe slot and the GPU die itself. They want all of them as close as possible. There are absolutely benefits in terms of performance for that. But supply chain wise, the more variations you want to have of your product. Oh, we've got these different processors and these different RAM amounts and these different storage amounts. All of a sudden, this becomes an exponentially multiplying number of different SKUs you have to maintain if it's all fully integrated. So Apple does have to do that with the different CPU SKUs, whether you want Max or Ultra or whatever else, as well as RAM amounts. And then SSDs, oh man, if you had to have one of these and one of these and one of these, one of these and one of these and one of these, one of these and one of these, it becomes a nightmare, right? So the SSDs are understandably modular. But then Apple stops understanding why that's important when it isn't about their supply chain management, when it's about keeping parts out of landfills, or it's about convenience when you're deploying a fleet of machines and you want to quickly be able to have your technicians perform maintenance on something and get it back out into the field. They just develop this kind of amnesia about why that would be important. And it's incredibly frustrating to me because the issue is that Apple engineers things to be worse. They put actual real work and money into making something worse. And it just makes me angry.
It should probably. I'm entirely on board with
anyone who expends time and energy and money to make the world crappier is just not worthy of my respect.
There's a lot of that, unfortunately.
And that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't accept it. I'm frustrating. So
moving on. I don't have any counterpoints. I hate that kind of stuff, so I disagree with you.
I haven't watched Marquez's video, but a lot of people in Floatplane chat are talking about it. Something about giving them a shout out for environmentally friendly packaging, but then saying, oh, but you can't upgrade it at all. Yeah, I mean, it's a very mixed message, isn't it? The impact of a little bit of plastic compared to the impact of e-waste is not even close.
I think the environmental friendly packaging is very easy, very what do you say, that high visibility win,
Yeah.
and the non-upgradability is a lot
Under there.
Yeah. Not a lot of people are necessarily going to notice it, but the impact is actually higher.
Yeah.
Which just really sucks. So, yeah, some people in the chat are saying this take isn't very hot.
Well, I'm feeling hot.
I think the anger and the frustration is high, but I think a lot of people agree with you.